Okay, so recently I was camping in Washington, D.C., right? And I moved in there towards the end of May. I was there for 2 weeks. Then I went to North Carolina. When I came back, my tent was fine and all my stuff in it was fine. Then I was back for about a week, and then my car was repossessed. And then I was there for about a month without a car. And then my tent was burned down. But in that time, I learned a lot, I saw a lot, and I felt a lot. And there were a few days in there when it was hot, and I didn't have any food or money. There's a place 3 blocks from Allen Park where I was camping, where I could take showers and get food and stuff in the morning, but it was almost a joke. They would give you a breakfast usually. That was usually at least 1, maybe 2 eggs, usually a piece of sausage, and then there would be a piece of bread or some grits, usually, or oatmeal. And then you would get a bag lunch that would come with that. And the bag lunch usually had a small water, or a soda or a juice box. Also in that bag lunch, you'd have like a bologna type sandwich, like a lunch meat type sandwich that looked about the quality of prison sandwiches. When I've worked in prisons in the past, I worked there as a service provider type person, and it looked about the same quality. And a bag of chips, you usually get like a granola bar, a fruit cup with some fruit soaking in sugar water, some cookies. So basically a bag of snacks that's not even good for 3-year-olds or 3rd graders, yet many children get these types of lunches for their school days throughout the country of the United States every day to go to school. Terrible lunches, terrible quality food, and shit that's actually probably poisonous and not good for you. So there were a few days in my tent where it was hot. I just laid there and sweat, literally, and like I couldn't even barely get up to like go even try and like call somebody, or I was like out of electricity almost with my phones, my batteries to my phones, my extra batteries were dead. Like I was just in there suffering and like praying to God to help me, or at least to just take me off the planet or something. A number of times I'd hear somebody call out, water, who wants some water, who wants some food? A number of days I did that. I got up out of my tent, we got some more crappy food from somebody giving off food or water. Sometimes the food was better, sometimes the waters were frozen and you couldn't even drink the water for like 3 hours. I got a water one afternoon, and even at 9 o'clock at night it was still half frozen, so I could only drink half of that water. But in my last month there, before my tent was burned, I slept very little. And in not sleeping, I was engaged in a special kind of aesthetic existence. In that existence, man, it was different, you know. And it's I remember a couple of those days when I was laying there before I finally could just call somebody or just figure something out. But days in a row, I'd lay there and I could actually feel my cell tissues breaking down in my feet and in my legs. Like there was a tingling, like something was happening to my cells. And I don't know what it was, but it was like lack of nutrition, malnutrition, lack of rest, a lot of things, lack of sleep while I was resting, but there was no sleep, barely, not much sleep that whole month. But it was something that I had been thinking about doing for over a year, was camping in Washington, D.C. And actually for 2 years, I had been speaking to people out, well, if you're basically giving everything up and you're going to become homeless, where would you do that at? Way back in like the winter, like January, February, well, probably more like March. Like March of 2019, I started asking my uncles, where would you go if you were going to be homeless? Well, it came to May 2021, Allen Park, at the corner of New Jersey Avenue and O Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. And when you step down off of my tent and off the ledge that I was, the little planter area, the area I was posted up in the park, and you step into the street, you see the Capitol Dome and the Capitol building at the end of New Jersey Avenue. I was also next to fire engine number 6 and fire truck number 4. It's a fire station right there. Also across from Dunbar High School. So I learned a lot, but you know, it's interesting now. I've been indoors at my friend's house, they're kind of been taking care of me a little bit, and I've been figuring it out with a few different people since my tent was burned. And I'm kind of actually sleeping like a baby now some nights, like sleeping like till I don't want to get up. which is odd. But sleeping, like I want to sleep in, and eating food, like I need to remember which foods I need to eat now because I'm trying to get my body back. My teeth have suffered a tiny bit, but I don't think anything's rotten out yet. But I have a lot of things to address now. A place to live. I don't think it's really safe to live in tents unless you're like a meth head or you want to get be a prostitute. If you want to be a hard drug addict or a prostitute, living in tents in Washington, D.C. or any other city is great because that's what those places are for. They're for people who are on hard drugs and who are, being prostitutes. And also it's like for trafficking people who are either one, illegal here in the country, and so they're easily manipulated and forced to do whatever you want. Two, children. People are taking children to these camps, wooing them, mesmerizing them, and then it's all over for them. And then, all those people who just got let out of the judicial system, out of the incarceration because of COVID. A lot of those folks have been shuffled around the country into these different tent camps, trying to hide them from the authorities now. We have a really strange situation in our country right now where there's the homeless people, or the evidence of homeless people that I've seen have increased a lot, and it's really nationwide in the United States. It's in every city and most towns, and in the countryside, I'd be willing to bet there's a lot of people living up in the woods too. Anyways, I can't really put an exact finger on it, but I think people are fed up with contributing to a society, or maybe they fed up with everybody. I mean, I don't know what it is. For me, I don't want to pay taxes to an organization where, the military, for instance, where their captains of their ships pay for their prostitutes when they go on shore leave. I mean, I'm not down with paying for that shit. And that's what tax dollars pay for. Now, conversely, if you're one of these people that like to live in these camps, you have no problem with human trafficking, with using people for sex and paying money, and probably any sort of violence or control through drugs that you use on people. And that's what these people use. Now, we could flip it around and say that the government does the same thing such as these thugs. So, I'm not sure 100% who's the power broker. I'm not 100% who's good or bad in these situations. But I do know this. People who are pedophiles need to be taken off the planet. Pedophiles should not be on the planet. People who walk around and look at children and want to have sex with them and look at them in a sexual way. Those people all need to be taken off the planet immediately. Rapists need to be taken off the planet. If you're walking around raping people, if your idea is, hey, I'm going to grab that person and snatch them into the corner and beat them and rape them, or tie them up somewhere and rape them as much as I want for as long as I want, keep them as slaves, I don't know. Those people need to be gone off the planet. Those two groups, first of all, foremost, above anything else, take them the fuck off planet Earth. Now, moving along. Back to me. Me, myself, and I was abused as a child sexually. And, I have many, 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 many years of memories that are just gone. My life is kind of like commercials with my memories. I see little snippets, but they're mostly gone. My memories are mostly gone from back when I was younger. And I do believe because I was being sexually abused by multiple people and probably passed around by multiple people. And Reston, Virginia, where I grew up, Reston, Virginia, there was a lot of people being raped as children, a lot of people being raped who were boys, and a lot of women being gang raped as children. So add all these pieces up, and that's Reston, Virginia. And it's right outside of Washington, D.C. It was the new community founded by Robert E. Simon, who sold his entertainment complex in Manhattan and came down here and bought a farm and built Reston. Well, guess what? We're not dead. We're just resting. That was one of the old slogans, but we're not dead. We're just resting. Well, I'm not resting anymore neither. I don't like it. I don't really like resting or sleeping. I see too much fucked up shit going on. I see the decay of the human family. The human family has become like anathema. It's one thing to recognize that it doesn't exist. A family where there's a mother and a father together that are stable in their relationship, and they raise children in a loving way and they care for them. It's almost like modern society does not want the traditional family model to exist. They don't want a man and a woman to be happy together. And when I say they, I mean the powers that be, that the slave masters who run the United States. The slave masters run the United States, and I think what happened was, I've heard good things about Europe. I've only been there once, but I've heard great things. Like, they actually teach the truth in their schools. In the United States, we do not learn the truth. We learn partial truths, and we learn lies as well. Anyways, man. So, all in all, you can't really fight a tank with a gun. And a flower gets trampled on by an army boot. A military boot will trample on your flowers. However, if we can get people to think more, if we can take them off of their addiction diets, which actually as children starts with refined sugar, if we can get people off of these habits, these addiction habits, you know, and where you're putting yourself ahead of everything else. And it's good, you have to look out for yourself. Nobody else looks out for nobody but yourself. However, we need to affect people so they stop eating other people. And when I say eating other people, I mean like they're devouring them. What can I take from you? What can I get from you? What can you do for me that can make me live better? Like, you know, like can you clean my toilets? Can you work at my business for as little money as I could pay you so I can make as much money as possible? And unfortunately, that means the idea of shared prosperity has been lost. And shared prosperity, I think, was an ideal, or is an ideal to strive for. Shared prosperity is an ideal to strive for, that all human beings could do well and be well together, and that's what I want it to be. And I want the children of tomorrow to have all preventable suffering taken care of. Medicine, housing, food, clothing, necessities, all children should have those. My goal is not to force people to do anything they don't want to do. But my goal is to basically make it known and have it come to reality that all people, there's enough resources for all people on the planet, and all people on the planet should have those resources at the very, very, very most minimum levels so that they can actually thrive in their life. You know, growing up around people who have almost everything and can travel the world, and they did, and doing all these things, and then me being the person with parents from Pittsburgh who was more caught up maybe not having all that. I didn't have all that, but I watched it. I watched people around me, and I watched them travel to other countries as a kid, and I never understood what that meant. I was like, cool, have fun, you know. I watched a lot of kids have really, really nice stuff. Lots of really high-end stuff growing up in Reston, Virginia, Fairfax County. And I also knew kids with barely anything. So me, my father was an engineer. My stepmother had a career. My mother became a PhD scientist, and my stepfather was a lawyer. But amongst all that, why do you think a child gets neglected among all that stuff? Well, there's lots of answers, but it's just reality. When I'm watching people around me having everything, and I'm here with 1 pair of shoes and 3 pairs of jeans for the year, and I have to make my own clothes because my mom didn't want to buy them because they cost too much. She said, make them instead, it's easier. You can kind of see what I'm getting at. I've seen life from many perspectives, and I've also studied society, and my degree in academia was in anthropology and sociology with a minor in filmmaking, which makes me an observant person, an aesthetic person, and also a person who can see trends. Later in life, I've worked in many things, many, many arenas. I've seen a lot of things from the inside, the outside, and been a service provider as well as a service receiver, a recipient. Today, all I do is focus on what God wants me to do. Paint, bring people to God, save the children of the world, and maybe find some love for myself in this world. Anyways, that's a lot. Chew on it or don't, or throw me in the trash, or lift me up. I'm always going to be at the top or at the bottom. I ain't nothing in the middle. Take it. All right, much love. One love.